remembering the memory when Kuma was rescued by the Revolutionary Army from the Holy Land Mary Joieuse for a moment. He had just recovered when he immediately chose to leave despite everyone trying to stop him. With his devil fruit ability, he is heading towards Red Port, but unable to control his body. He crashes into a mountain and falls down. People in the area quickly recognize this unusual presence. They panic because Kuma has lost all humanity and become a slave of the celestial dragons. He does not stop there. He tries to climb back to the Holy Land as if searching for something. And soon, a group of soldiers is dispatched. They refer to Kuma as the invincible slave who has returned, and thus his gigantic body suffers a lot of damage from the soldiers and falls down. They continue to use chains to wrap around him to restrain him. Seeing that the celestial dragons seem quite pleased. Unfortunately, Kuma's will remains very strong and he continues to rise. He activates his devil fruit ability and blows away everything blocking his path. Seeing this scene, the master is very angry and calls him a shameless slave. After resting for a moment, the next opponent appears. The red dog Akainu receives news and immediately shows up to ask what Kuma is doing. First, the Revolutionary Army incident the day before. Today, things have turned out like this again. It's truly annoying. The level of destruction he has caused is unprecedented in this holy land. Seeing the presence of the fleet admiral, the soldiers breathe a sigh of relief. However, the celestial dragons dislike this and consider the soldiers useless and incapable of doing anything. By the way, they want to know what is happening right now. As yesterday they wanted to eat lobsters but received news that they were sold out. This is unprecedented. They want to know what is going on with the food supply in Mary Joieuse. They continue to order the fleet admiral to execute Kuma right after injuring him. He does not like to follow orders from those people, but he must act because if he cannot control it, it will be a big problem. Kuma still stands there panting from exhaustion. Akainu also finds it strange that someone who has lost all consciousness is acting on their own. He asks where the opponent intends to go and attacks directly. Kuma does not dodge and lets himself be hit. Blood still flows like a normal person, making the fleet admiral a bit surprised. Although he is hit, it is still not enough to stop Kuma's advance. He just rushes forward, ignoring the red dog's cries for help. Dozens of molten lava punches are thrown out but are absorbed, until he strikes his legs. He activates the ability to move his body to another place. Akainu angrily recalls the incident of Bonney being captured on the burning island in the New World, listening to the news that the girl had escaped from the government. The fleet admiral felt a chill down their spine. But fortunately, everything had come to an end. She was extremely angry because they had turned her father into a robot. Wanting everyone to pay for this, the red dog didn't care and told her to keep barking. But Kuma would never wake up. He had voluntarily become a weapon for the Navy. Bonney did not believe it was true because her father would never abandon her. That fleeting thought made the red dog wonder where Kuma was going since he was just a puppet. There was no will or reason left. Returning to the current situation at Egghead, the Navy had controlled the situation thanks to the power of the pacifistas. The sea monster weapons were being destroyed one by one and sinking to the bottom of the sea. The battle between the Golden Monkey Kizaru and Luffy in Gear 4 was still ongoing. The Straw Hat Captain unleashed extremely fast and strong punches, but most were blocked. The old man remained extremely calm, wanting to wear down the main character's stamina first. Luffy continuously attacked with various techniques. The Golden Monkey was also a bit surprised and said, "Now I understand why he could defeat Kaido. I admit that Luffy is much stronger than before, but unfortunately, his abilities are not average." Wanting to know why pirates like the main character wanted to protect Vegapunk so much, Luffy thought that question was, "What I ask you? Why do they want to kill him?" After hearing this, Kizaru seemed to have understood the problem. The Golden Monkey countered Straw Hat's attack and said that he didn't want to kill him. The rubber-brained boy continued to punch, but this time the opponent was serious. With the power of the devil fruit, Kizaru flew high and looked down, saying that he absolutely did not want to kill that friend, because he had known Vegapunk for a long time. However, justice still had to be enforced. Immediately firing a very strong beam of light at Luffy so that he wouldn't interfere in this matter anymore. That movement was too fast for the main character to dodge and he ended up being stuck and flew straight. His body also crashing into the robot carrying the sunny ship. Kizaru successfully used one arrow to kill two birds. But in his mind, he also recalled the moment Vegapunk created the giant robot. Now it had been destroyed like this. What a pity. Frankie's group was walking when suddenly they got shot and fell from above. Luckily they were still okay. Lilith, who was sitting inside controlling it, thought he had died. Then turning around saw the robot's body showing signs of exploding. She hurried outside and told Bonney and Frankie to run away quickly or they would all die now. Vegaforce 01 immediately caused a terrifying explosion, blowing away the remaining 3 people. Witnessing the scene before her, Lilith was also sad because this was their dream robot. But more importantly, Frankie wanted to know if the Sunny ship was affected. Bonney had also seen Luffy crash into the barrier earlier and immediately informed him. Just as she finished speaking, the golden monkey appeared right in front of him to greet him. They were quite angry with this old man, but he didn't care. Bonney had grown a lot. Kids these days develop fast. Seeing her stand up, the golden monkey guessed she also needed to deal with something with him. The order to eliminate Vegapunk, which she hated, had been issued, but now she no longer considered it a target. Bonney just grabbed a few things and rushed to fight to the death but failed. Kizaru simply used his devilish powers to dodge and threw her a punch that made her head slam into the barrier just like Luffy. Frankie witnessed this and was extremely angry, immediately using his ultimate move to threaten her. The golden monkey didn't want to stay here playing with them anymore, so he teleported to another place. Lilith seemed to know what the opponent's purpose was, so she asked her friend to call the whole team inside. In the control room, Usopp also heard the sound of the wind and asked how the situation outside was. It's such an explosion. Frankie is worried about everyone inside, so he knows they're still okay. At this moment, Dr. Vegapunk has also successfully decoded the defense system. But after this stage, it's really exhausting. York is angry because this group of geniuses is too troublesome. Sanji also asks if they can leave right now. The old man smiles and replies that he has kept everyone waiting for a long time, asking them to bring the luggage from the second floor up to the ship because it is very important. Frankie outside continuously urges everyone to hurry up because there's not much time left. The old man also says that the shield can be destroyed at any moment, asking the robot friend if he has moved Vegaforce 01 and the Sunny ship to the back as planned. Just as he finishes speaking, they immediately receive a response from Golden Monkey. The appearance of this person indicates that the plan out there has failed. He also reaffirms to the group that escaping from here is impossible. Everyone sees that this person is their adversary and is extremely confused and shouts loudly. They ask him when he arrived here and where Luffy is. Brook is very worried because the people here are not a match for this old man. The old friend also asks if the recent explosion was caused by him. Kizaru confirms it was, implying that their giant robot in the dream has disappeared. However, the golden monkey wants them to understand that this is very difficult, and he does not want to prolong it any further. Before he could do anything, another explosion suddenly occurs, shaking the entire area. It comes from above the shield along with the widening eyes of the main character. After being hit, Luffy transforms into the sun god Nika form. His body also hurts quite a bit after colliding with the shield. Luffy's laughter echoes through every corner, leaving the golden monkey confused as to how. Outside, the main character has transformed into a giant to help his teammates. The young man runs like the wind toward his opponent. Frankie and Lilith can't even tell what just flew by. The sound coming from the main character is getting closer, but then suddenly a giant hand grabs Kizaru's body. He doesn't react at all because he only feels his body lifted for a second. The puzzling thing is why that crazy person's body is so huge. But as he gets closer, he hears no sound. The friends below look up at their captain's giant size and widen their eyes. He laughs and says it's too hot. Kizaru knows he played with that crazy guy, so he is a bit worried. Luffy thanks God for still being alive. He thinks that flying through the shield twice would kill him. So the battle between Luffy and Admiral Kizaru has truly begun. The group of friends were extremely surprised after seeing the captain's giant form, blaming him for almost stepping on them. Kizaru couldn't escape and praised the main character for being truly huge, stating that he would not hand over Dr. Vegapunk to him. The Marine Admiral thought it would be better if the group left him to do his work. But Luffy refused and dragged his opponent elsewhere to fight. In this state, he could do anything, and as a result, Kizaru was thrown around everywhere by the young man. Then he used his arm to spin and throw him with extreme force, sending him flying far away. After doing so, he even turned around and laughed as if it were nothing. Brook below sighed that he finally got to see Luffy's new form with his own eyes, but then remembered that he didn't have eyes. Nami saw that he was acting crazy and punched him. The current situation was extremely urgent, so everyone had to quickly run before it was too late. While Luffy was holding off Kizaru, they had to carefully bring Robin along. There was also Stussy, but at this moment, Dr. Vegapunk suddenly saw Bonney with Sentomaru. After being kicked into the shield, she was also having a lot of difficulty. Chopper asked where Atlas was going and learned that they needed to regain control of the pacifistas. Otherwise they could very likely destroy this place as soon as the barrier disappeared. On the island, no one had higher authority than Vegapunk, so this was a very good idea. Whoever controlled the pacifistas would win. Just as they were about to leave, Dr. Vegapunk stopped them. He knew this was very dangerous but insisted on going with them because he wanted to save Bonney. Usopp stepped forward to stop him because he was the target, and the old man became flustered and turned to scold Frankie for letting Bonney stay below. Knowing that the girl was still alive, his friend was quite happy and recounted that Kizaru had kicked her into the shield earlier. He himself couldn't do anything, so this time he would go to save her. Hearing this, the old man also decided to go with them and asked Edison here to turn off the barrier. Sanji also overheard the conversation. After learning that the pretty girl had been kicked away, this young man was quite angry. He said that if they wanted to save Bonney, they should let him join. All the luggage had been collected, so the rescue team agreed to meet at the back door. Since there wasn't much time left, Dr. Vegapunk also handed over everything here to Edison. At this moment, Frankie was blaming himself, thinking that if he had been a little faster then, he could have saved Bonney. Lilith saw this and kicked him, saying that worrying now wouldn't help. She allowed her friend to go ahead and left this place to her. Hearing this, Frankie was very touched and asked her to take care of the Sunny for him. The girl also looked excited when she saw Luffy throwing Kizaru very far away. The robot brother turned back and said proudly that their captain would never lose. At this moment, Bonney was being hunted everywhere by the Marines. Knowing that she couldn't hide any longer, she decided to fight. Many Marine soldiers were affected by her Devil Fruit ability and lost their fighting capability. The information reported that everyone in the central area had been turned into old people or children. Upon receiving the news, they informed others to be vigilant against the pirate Bonney's Devil Fruit ability. After fighting, the girl was very tired and sat down to catch her breath. At this moment, Sentomaru was also found in a terrible state. His whole body was burned, and it was unclear if he would survive. Bonney remembered that when she collided with the shield and fell, this friend had caught her. Although in critical condition, Sentomaru still urged her to run immediately because the Marines were coming. She didn't know if she could hide here until everything was over. In another development, the battle between Zoro and Lucci was still very intense. After transforming, his opponent was using speed to make things difficult for him. He also asked the Straw Hat Swordsman not to hinder his work. Zoro replied that even if he ran around in circles, he would know where he was because he smelled like an animal. Hearing this, Lucci lunged forward to punch, but all his attacks were blocked. The two strong individuals continued to unleash a series of techniques. Our swordsman was thrown into the air but was still able to gain the upper hand. He used his two swords to clash with Lucci's fists and made him spin around and fall to the ground. Luffy saw them fighting and laughed with delight. He even asked if Zoro needed any help, to which he replied that he didn't need it because he was more than capable of defeating this guy. He also advised the captain to focus on fighting Kizaru. Just like that, the two sides continued to exchange blows, but neither had landed a hit yet. Seeing his opponent panting, Zoro declared that if that was all the strength he had, he shouldn't dream of fighting their captain. Lucci also laughed and praised him, saying he was indeed very strong. He was worthy of being the number 2 under a Yonko. He thought that if he could kill Zoro, it would be a remarkable achievement. As for Kizaru, after being thrown by the main character, he was still falling straight into the sea. But when he was close to touching the water, he used his Devil Fruit ability to return his body to Luffy's location. This speed was just enough for Straw Hat to react. When he turned his head to look, he saw a bunch of dazzling lights flying towards him. Not stopping there, Kizaru split himself into many copies to attack him. Luffy made an unbelievable face and tried to dodge the attacks aimed at him. Although outnumbered, in his sun god Nika form, he was still strong enough to fight back. After eliminating countless copies of Kizaru, he continued to split into more. Being attacked by the light, he felt blinded and couldn't see. Kizaru thought he was gaining the upper hand, but then the main character turned into a giant. With his top-notch tactical mind, Luffy probably thought that with a large body, he could block the opponent's light, and that was indeed the case. As with just one swing of his arm, a bunch of copies were scattered. On the contrary, the Marine Admiral saw the giant target as easier to hit, so he also aimed for the head. However, before he could get close, he was blown away by Luffy's inflated mouth. The other copies had to work together to hold his body and continue chasing the Straw Hat Pirate. Luffy found it annoying and didn't know which one was his real body. After tricking the opponent into getting close, he unleashed a powerful kick that scattered all of them. The young man wondered if he had hit the real body. Then he turned around and saw Kizaru had caught his crewmates below. It turned out that Luffy was the one who had been tricked all along. Brook asked the Marine Admiral to release Usopp immediately. The old man asked them where Vegapunk was. Poor Straw Hat's sniper had his mouth covered and could only call out Luffy's name. Suddenly, there was a loud noise outside that caught everyone's attention. It turned out to be Dr. Vegapunk driving a car to rescue Bonney. Sanji happened to be there and asked to join him. He was in a hurry and didn't want the marine soldiers to touch Bonney. He couldn't abandon a child like that, so he would try his best. Sanji then also tried to get inside. Kizaru knew that was the target to eliminate, so he let go of Usopp. Seeing this, Straw Hat shouted for them to stay inside the house because if they went out, they would be targeted. As soon as he finished speaking, Kizaru used light to shoot directly at the car. However, that technique was unexpectedly swallowed by Luffy. This scene shocked the others. Lilith below suddenly saw Franky return with the others and didn't understand what was happening. His friend asked to use General Franky to take the ship away. He himself would go with Dr. Vegapunk's group. As for the Straw Hat Pirate, after eating that light, he had some problems. The light spread throughout his body and then radiated everywhere through his eyes and mouth. Thanks to him, Dr. Vegapunk's group was able to escape outside. Edison inside had just opened the barrier but had to close it again. Below, the marine soldiers had also discovered the target to be eliminated was walking on the clouds. This news was reported so that everyone was ready to shoot it down. Seeing this, Atlas stuck his head out and shouted, ordering the pacifistas to change targets, demanding that all marine soldiers on the island be eliminated. This order was immediately carried out, causing the marine side to be afraid as they became the target again. After becoming the new target of the pacifista, the soldiers had to flee the area to avoid danger. Outside, the Vice Admiral of the Navy also realized that Vegapunk had overridden his orders, which was why there was such chaos. The robot army was gaining the upper hand, making the group above happy. More importantly, Franky didn't understand why they were rushing straight down like this. The old man explained that the clouds had adhesive properties, and his tires were made of clouds, so he wasn't afraid of falling. He asked Atlas to quickly find Bonney so they could rescue her, as she must be very scared and lonely right now. Sanji heard this and also went out to search, but below he only heard loud explosions and had no idea where Bonney was. At this moment, he knew he had to focus on searching through his sensing ability, which worked like a radar specifically for finding the girls he cared about. Very quickly, an image of Bonney sitting in a corner appeared. Sanji immediately reported the location to Vegapunk to change direction. Franky didn't quite believe it and had to ask if he was sure, because he didn't see anything. The young man also scolded him, saying his radar had never been wrong. Dr. Vegapunk also trusted him, but the speed was too slow. Sanji was afraid that girl would be in trouble, so he quickly ran ahead using his skills. On this side, Bonney felt relieved seeing the pacifista return to their side again. Before she could smile for long, she was attacked by Navy Vice Admiral Pomsky. He had been looking for her because she dared to turn his men into children and old people. The soldiers came one after another, forcing Bonney to shoot. She dodged flexibly and then used her devil fruit ability, making the three men imagine their bodies reduced to dry skeletons. Thanks to this, she managed to hold back the Vice Admiral for a bit, but when she tried to run away, she was targeted by another pacifista. It turned out this old woman had the ability to control anything she rode on. The devil fruit user Nori Navy Vice Admiral Bluegrass. She wondered if killing Bonney would make the curse placed on her disappear. Being targeted, Bonney saw an image of her father and gave up. The old woman showed no mercy and immediately shot. Fortunately, Sanji was there to help his friend dodge to the side. After hearing about Kuma being her little father, the young man was quite sympathetic, but still advised her to accept the truth that it was no longer him. As soon as he finished speaking, Pomsky chased after him and attacked in his beast form. At this moment, a few other pacifista arrived to help the pair under orders from Vegapunk. Thanks to this, everyone was able to leave safely. The two were immediately called onto the vehicle to return to the top, as it was too dangerous down here. At the same time, Nami's group was trying to transport Robin as gently as possible. They were also afraid of hurting their friend, so they had to apologize beforehand and ask her to endure a little longer. Just as they were about to set off, Stussy demanded to stay because she still had work to do. Looking into her eyes, Edison also agreed and urged the others to leave quickly. Usopp looked worried and asked again to be sure if it was okay. Edison said it was her wish, so not to worry. Nami also smiled and said goodbye, promising to meet again later. Out at sea at this moment, Saint Saturn knew he could no longer rely on the Navy, so he stood up. At the same time, Zoro was still being held back by Lucci. His fighting skills were no match for our swordsman, but his speed was much greater, constantly hiding and launching surprise attacks. He also advised Zoro to give up because resistance was useless. Hearing this, he was quite annoyed because this guy always looked down on others. Above, the battle between Luffy and Admiral Kizaru was still very intense, with neither side gaining a significant advantage. The main character dodged every light beam shot at him while laughing gleefully. His opponent felt that fighting like this was going nowhere. He said they had their reasons, but Luffy didn't care. The Leopard Man also declared that all of them would be destroyed. Zoro blocked the malicious attacks aimed at him and told him to keep running his mouth. While the four powerful warriors were concentrating, tremors began to occur at sea. The pressure created by Saint Saturn was immediately recognized by Admiral Kizaru and Luffy. Chopper, who was running with everyone inside, suddenly felt uneasy. Jinbei, who was transporting luggage, also sensed that something bad was happening at sea. Dark clouds kept coming, and the Marines on the ship had no idea what was happening. The sky was bright, but in the next second, it was swallowed by darkness. This scene made the Vice Admiral sweat because he couldn't believe it. Immediately after, a voice ordered all pacifistas to stop. This order was effective immediately, leaving Sanji's group confused. Atlas tried to give new orders for the pacifistas to protect them, but it was ineffective. In her mind, she knew that the only people with higher authority than her were the five elders. In the next second, a large explosion occurred, leaving the nearby Marines confused. A five-pointed star also slowly appeared on the ground. Power radiated from it everywhere, making everyone worried, and the sky also changed because of it. Sanji asked Dr. Vegapunk to move higher to observe what was happening. Outside, the Marine Vice Admiral ordered all soldiers on the island to retreat, because Lord Saturn, one of the five elders, would be coming to Egghead Island. No one below the rank of lieutenant commander was allowed to see him. This news frightened those nearby. The large explosion continued, helping Dr. Vegapunk realize that the situation was gradually getting worse as one of the five elders had come here. Frankie, who knew nothing, also asked and was answered. They are the people with the highest power in the world. Bonney's face also clearly showed fear. At this moment, something black appeared inside the star-shaped circle. Legs slowly grew out, along with red eyes. Because he was high up, Sanji witnessed the entire transformation. The disgusting creature then transformed into a human form resembling a demon from hell. Saint Saturn possessed a giant body and a terrifying appearance, to the point that a marine who didn't know thought it was a monster. As a result, he was immediately defeated by the elder with just a look. His comrades saw this and had to quickly leave. The old man sighed that it had been a long time since he stood on the ground like this. He was also considered the god at the forefront of science and defense. One of the five elders, the people with the highest power in the world government. Bonney also didn't know what that monster was. Above, Kizaru had also arrived and shot directly at the vehicle. Sanji quickly warned Dr. Vegapunk to dodge to the side, but they fell freely downwards. Fortunately, Kizaru couldn't attack further because Luffy had caught up. He seemed to be close to his limit in this form, which is why he was so slow. The opponent also knew this, so there was no need to rush. Frankie asked the main character to do something, so he also tried. The young man inflated an arm, but before he could do anything, he was grazed by the opponent's shot, causing his body to spin. But thanks to this, Luffy came up with an idea to defeat the opponent. Waiting for Kizaru to attack again, the main character quickly strengthened his haki in his hand and punched. At first, it missed, but Luffy used his elastic body to make the punch bounce back. That move was so unexpected that Kizaru couldn't dodge. As a result, he was punched and his head was deformed. Below, Saint Saturn witnessed everything and called Luffy Nika. After knocking away the Marine Admiral, he also returned to his original form because he had reached his limit. As for the group in the vehicle, they suffered the same fate. Falling from a height, everyone was thrown far away. But fortunately, no one was seriously injured. Sanji worried about Bonney and Atlas, asking if they were okay. When the new enemy approached, hearing the noise, Bonney also woke up and saw this appearance. Dr. Vegapunk also tried to speak, and the other party replied, thinking he was dead. Bonney's eyes at this moment showed an indescribable fear, along with hatred for this person. So she immediately got up. She didn't say anything and immediately ran over with the intention of attacking. Picking up the sword, and just like that, Bonney jumped in and stabbed while the other party calmly stood and watched. Just like that, the little one successfully made Saturn bleed. The navy at this time was running in disarray from where Saint Saturn had set foot. Only vice admirals or rear admirals could stay to assist. Others were forbidden to look upon his holy countenance. Saint Saturn, who stood above all, unexpectedly took action directly like this. As for Bonney, after successfully stabbing the enemy, she was advised by Dr. Vegapunk to stay away from that guy. The navy, seeing one of the world's most powerful figures injured, was also angry, and everyone was ready to attack. Making the situation worse, Bonney cursed the opponent and as a result was punished. He used his eyes to shoot some kind of energy beam that severely injured her and sent her flying far away. Sanji saw this scene and immediately rushed in, but still couldn't do anything. Their opponent was strong beyond imagination. Frankie saw his teammate taken down in an instant and didn't act rashly. As soon as he pulled the sword out of the person, all the wounds were healed. This is the ability of one of the world's top 5 people. The navy then rushed in wanting to arrest Dr. Vegapunk and the others. However, Saint Saturn ordered them to stop, because they couldn't escape anymore. So there was no need to rush. He wanted to play around for a while longer because he had come here himself anyway. Admiral Kizaru was also scolded for not being like him at all. He couldn't justify himself. His whole body was trembling after the attack from Luffy. Thinking he wouldn't be able to move for a while. Looking at the main character, he was also exhausted and couldn't move. Saint Saturn was about to stab with his foot to see what would happen. But Frankie was faster and punched the captain flying far away. The opponent saw this and judged them to be wise pirates who knew how to cooperate. The robot friend curiously asked, "Even someone at the top of the world wants our captain's head?" This proved that Luffy is very special. The appearance of the main character and Bonney in this battle was not expected. If they could escape the island after being completely surrounded by the navy. He also wanted to witness that. However, things would become troublesome if that happened. And Dr. Vegapunk, who had betrayed the world government, he is a great danger if he gains freedom. Saint Saturn had to thank him for his contributions to the navy so far. So he would grant a special privilege. He asked him to name the names in order from least painful to most painful to eliminate each person. He wanted Dr. Vegapunk to suffer and die in regret for daring to betray the world government. Luffy was the first victim to suffer damage. Bonney then woke up and tried to struggle but was increasingly choked. Saint Saturn wondered why humans always want to do forbidden things. Sanji couldn't stand it and rushed forward again. But at this moment, all of their actions were restrained. No one could move, let alone save someone. Everyone was shocked by the overwhelming power of one of the most powerful people. Although the girl suffered a lot of damage, she still bravely cursed the person who killed her father. Mentioning Kuma, this guy called him a high-class slave, and a descendant of a tribe that had committed serious crimes against the world. The only survivor of the extinct pirate race. The past memories came back to Bonney. Kuma had wanted to become a hero who could save the oppressed and suffering. Like Nika, the warrior of liberation. Joyful dances appeared. The navy had prepared to give her the death sentence. Dr. Vegapunk tried to beg because she was still just a child. Bonney was very tired at this time, trying to remember the last beautiful images. She wondered if the warrior of liberation would come to save her. Going back 47 years ago to the Sorbet Kingdom. On that day a large boy was born in a small village. His father and mother also named their son Kuma. And asked the doctor to keep their bloodline a secret. He was a good person and promised not to tell anyone. So don't worry. Time passed peacefully for the whole family. About 4 years later, Kuma had grown a bit. But on that day, something terrible happened. The kind doctor rushed to inform Clapp and his wife, advising them to leave immediately because government agents had found them. Upon hearing this, the couple's faces instantly changed color. But they couldn't do anything. Government henchmen had arrived and threatened them. They demanded that everyone follow them obediently if they didn't want to die right there. As a result, there was a struggle, but the victory still belonged to the other group. Clapp tried to plead for his wife and child because they were innocent. Only he possessed the Buccaneer bloodline. However, no matter how much he begged, it was useless. The whole family was escorted to a detention center. Kuma was still young and didn't understand the seriousness of the situation. He was still protected by his parents, waiting for the day of judgment. As a result, all three were separated in the Holy Land. His mother left advice for her son to live his own life. And no matter how difficult it was, he should try to overcome it. His father smiled and said that their family would meet again, so he should be strong. Son. From then on, Kuma's life as a slave began. Every day, the boy had to follow unreasonable orders from his master. Because he was a buccaneer slave, Kuma himself was considered rare. But he was still tortured and beaten mercilessly. The boy endured, waiting for the day he would be reunited with his parents. Time passed, and for the slaves, it was nothing short of hell. One day, his father was brought here. So the two of them met. Seeing the wounds on his father's body, Kuma was extremely worried. Mr. Clapp acted as if he was fine and praised his son for growing up so much. When asked about the current situation, the boy lied. He said that his master was very kind, so his father didn't need to worry. Their circumstances forced a boy who was only a few years old to mature quickly, both in spirit and body, to overcome all the pain. When his mother was mentioned, his father sadly sat down and told the truth, that his mother was no longer in this world. He himself thought this was the best way to free his wife. Kuma cried out in pain after hearing this. He had endured until today just to see his mother, but she was gone. The two of them couldn't hold back their tears but still had to try to overcome it. Kuma was told to continue living because one day the warrior of liberation would come, and he would save him from this hell. The boy, however, thought it would be better if he died. Clapp told him about the sun god Nika, the name of the legendary warrior associated with a smile on his face. In the legacy of the Buccaneers, it has been recorded for generations that one day the sun god will come and take them out to a place of warm sunlight and free seas. He also danced the dance of Nika, the warrior who always smiled, and he would make everyone smile along with his cheerful rhythm. Kuma looked at him and was a little happier. But immediately after, the boy had to face the pain of losing his last relative. A celestial dragon, seeing that the slaves were too noisy, fired a gun and took the life of his father. A few years later, those in power landed on an island. They wanted to play a game of hunting the local people. This place was not connected to the world government, so it was chosen, and that was God Valley about 38 years ago. This place was known as the Valley of God and also possessed rich resources. Those in power decided to take over this place. The king here could not accept it and cursed them as crazy for using innocent people's lives for entertainment. As soon as he finished speaking, he was slashed by Saint Garling, who was the top candidate in the hunt and had to start with minus 10,000 points. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention, Kuma bent the iron cage to free himself. However, immediately after, news of an escaped slave was reported. The other slaves were forced to go find and bring Kuma back. Not wanting to die here, the poor boy continued to run far away. The pain of losing his parents surged, making Kuma cry non-stop. However, at this time, the other slaves arrived with weapons. They were afraid of being implicated, so they beat the child to bring him back. Kuma didn't want to return to that hell anymore and struggled to get up. As a result, he was beaten unconscious and dragged back. From above, two other children at this time laughed loudly and stopped the group of people. They were also slaves like Kuma and wanted to be free. After hearing that this boy possessed the blood of giants, Ivankov and Ginny were very interested. Despite suffering a lot, these two people still maintained a cheerful attitude, calling the others pathetic because they didn't dare to save themselves. Being called a kid, Ginny bit a piece of meat and shouted, asking if they wanted to live or die. Everyone replied that they wanted to live, so they were invited to join the team. These two people wanted to create a miracle. And if they follow, we have a great plan here.